Are you ready for drinking? Drawing? What about laughing? Well, hold on to your butts. It's the ComX Friday Night Drink and Draw, with your hosts Sizzle and Spedsy, as well as a bunch of Australia's best-looking creators and artists, many of whom have books for sale at comx.shop. Hey, Sizzle, what say we start the shizzle?
Welcome to Friday Night's. Thanks, Spedsy. Welcome to Friday Night's Drink and Draw, brought to you by ComX. We are here every week, bringing together some of Australia's greatest artists to draw a character created by each week's special guest. This week's special guest is none other than Dave de Vries of Southern Squadron fame, and our artist will be drawing his character, the Dingo. Over to you, Spedsy.
That is true. Everything you said is completely true, Shane. Thank you. What I've got here is some fresh off the press copies of Presents #1. Why am I showing you? Because today launches Presents #2, Kickstarter. So not only are we kind of celebrating Dave de Vries, we're also celebrating more of this nonsense up in your face. So head to the address you can see below and sign up for some goodness. But we're here to draw, and here to draw with us is Quick Nick. Of course, Dave de Vries is our guest. Next to him is Duncan Pranavicius. Down the bottom, Ben Sullivan.
Oh, yeah.
You got Dave Dye, Alex Major, and Peter Lawson. Lucky I know everyone because Shane turned all the names off.
Oh, sorry about that.
Fortunately, I've met everyone before, so it was all good. All right, Dave, I want to pick your brain tonight, not only about the dingo, but just about your process creating characters and creating stories. And I thought you're an awesome storyteller, both on the page but in talking. Could you tell us a little bit about creating a character and creating the dingo? Just tell us about your process, starting with a blank page, but then also tied into how dingo came about. Does that make sense?
Yep. Well, I'm not sure how much of this story I've told before, but like in the case of the Southern Squadron, what I did there was I started off creating the Night Fighter, and the reason I did that was because I just wanted to do a superhero story. I'd been approached by ComX, or rather, somebody had noticed that ComX were going to put out a comic book, and it was actually advertised in the early '80s as Australia's first comic, which just shows how so out of the public sphere comic books were at that stage. I think the last, other than the stuff that Gerard Carr was doing, most of the comics, I think the most recent one that had been published was in '68, and that was Skippy the Bush Kangaroo. Tad had done the Dark Nebula, but there was not a lot out there. And so I just wanted to come up with a superhero character. And as a kid growing up, I'd always, I'd probably been introduced to comics as much through television as I had through comics itself. And so Batman was an obvious influence on me as a kid growing up. We used to love watching Batman at home, and then everybody come to school the next day and pretend they were Batman and kick each other around, and that was great. And then I also liked the Hulk, because the Hulk was the David Banner version with Bill Bixby. So when I thought about creating a character, I kind of went to those two and said, okay, what if we combined the Hulk and the Batman? And that's kind of where the Night Fighter came from. So he was a character that started off being kind of like Bill Bixby, just a normal bloke. But so it was almost like, what if Batman became the Hulk? And so the Night Fighter is kind of like that, which is a little bit like, I guess, then you end up with the inevitable Wolverine style. There you go. The inevitable Wolverine style super soldier thing. I think that was being created about the same time. But at the end of the day, that was all going back to the days of Captain America, I guess. So I was also in the Army Reserves, so the costume of the night fighter, you know, those spot things that he had on his suit, that was actually supposed to represent the camouflage from the military costumes. They had the jelly bean uniforms, and so that was sort of where that came from. So visually, it was sort of, I thought about, I guess, starting with the undies on the outside, and then I didn't want to do a cape, and so that chest area of his and the cowl was kind of like Batman's cape shrunk down just to the shoulders and the chest, and getting rid of the ears. So visually, it was like, okay, that's sort of Batman but slimmed down, and then the powers of the character were just that I wanted an excuse for him to Hulk out, and so that's what kind of happened. So the Night Fighter began very much as combining those two characters. Literally, the name gives away the origin, because Night and Fighter, you know, the fighter from the Hulk and Night from the Dark Knight. So it was, and it just sort of had a nice sort of it's not quite alliteration, but, you know, there's a nice rhythm to the, you know, night fight. It's sort of, you know, it's similar. Yeah. So and then the rest was just ripping stuff off I'd seen on TV. So I didn't even get very creative with his alter ego. I just went with Adam West, and job done. And then the character itself, because he was sort of based on Batman, I thought, okay, well, a story with just one character is going to be a bit boring, and Batman has a Robin, so maybe I should create a Robin character to align with Batman. And so I didn't want to do a young lad, so I did a female, and that became Lieutenant Smith, because I wanted to give the character a military origin. I didn't want to go with captain anything, because that had been done to death. So I thought, okay, I'm in the army, and a squad leader is a lieutenant, or in Australia, the Australian Army, it's a section. Sorry, no, that's not quite right. That's a platoon leader, but the smallest unit in the military is, as David knows, a section, and in America they call it a squad. So that sort of, I thought, okay, I'll go with the lieutenant. And then I wanted a boring name, something that would be not like Lieutenant Action, Lieutenant, you know, Super. So I just thought, what's the most bland name I could think of? And it was either Smith or Jones or Brown, or so I just went with Smith. So Lieutenant, and funnily enough, when I went to through Puckapunyal, my lieutenant happened to be Lieutenant Smith. So maybe that was just sitting in my head. And then
There's
I thought,
a lot
all right,
of Smiths out there that don't agree with you, mate. That they're
well, our neighbours with Smiths, so I kind of like it. So then the next step was to go, okay, well, now I've got this Lieutenant Smith, and it's a female, and I thought, it's a bit boring to have the guy in control. So why don't I imagine Robin was the boss, and so I just made Lieutenant Smith the controller. So it was going to originally be a pair of characters, Lieutenant Smith and the Night Fighter. And the idea was that she would be the boss. He would be this. So she's the brain, he's the brawn. It was that sort of basic idea. And then, of course, you start thinking about, okay, let's get sexual relationships in there, and you know, how would that
looking
all
good,
play?
Dave.
It's looking great.
Wow, awesome, Dave.
So then the being on a roll at that stage, I just thought, just for shits and giggles, it might be fun to have a flying character, and surprisingly, nobody had grabbed the Southern Cross as a name, and so I really liked. I think Alpha Flight had just come out. I liked the costume of the character that ultimately got called the Guardian, but he was, I think, originally called the Vindicator, and it was literally he was sort of wrapped in the flag. But the way the flag was designed, it was wrapped around him, so you only saw like half of the maple leaf. And I just thought that was really interesting, because, you know, it sort of stripped the maple leaf almost down to a graphic element. So I thought, okay, I might try that with the Southern Cross. So he was really created primarily.
Well,
Yeah, that's
Good,
awesome.
mate.
He's just kicking goal after goal, mate.
Pretty good for 10 minutes.
So then I had it. So suddenly I had this flying character, and I thought, how does he fly? Let's have him flying with mental powers, and so telekinesis, and that sort of then you built upon that. And I thought he needs to be vulnerable. The trouble with Superman is, you know, he's a Mary Sue. Excellent.
oh, wow.
Not finished yet. He has to show who's the handsomest.
Yeah.
Does he have a tail or not?
9
Because
minutes.
the reference has
Yeah.
tail and no tail, so I don't know what to draw
I'll
him
put the
with.
tail on.
You can go either way.
Oh, okay, cool.
I'm designing the character so he can,
There it is.
when he transforms, depending on how he feels, he can
Yeah.
become
Oh,
more
yours
or
is
less
really having
wolf-like.
issues.
That's cool.
Got it, mate. Just very faint. Looking good, mate.
I can't reveal what's. Anyway. Sorry, Dave. Yeah.
So Southern Cross was originally he was built around the costume and the powers, and I thought, okay, if the Night Fighter's from Melbourne, because that's where I was living at the time, I had a mate from Sydney. We used to chuck off and do that whole Melbourne-Sydney rivalry thing. So I thought, let's play that out. And then I thought, I just tried to make everything that the Night Fighter was different for the Southern Cross. So he was very macho and beer swelling. The Sydney sider was sort of Chardonnay sipping and slightly effeminate. These days you probably would have gone full blown, bi, but back then that was a little radical. But it was trying to just find those differences so that you would get some level of tension and sort of just drama within the stories, and then finally I thought, okay, I need to have a fourth character so that we get some symmetry. And that's when the dingo came in. The name Costas Borges, actually, believe it or not, this friend was telling me the story where he was watching The Price is Right. And I'll try and tell the story in as about a non-racist thing as I can. But basically, he just said that they said, Costas Borges, come on down. And so the guy came down the front and he said, I don't speak English. And they went, Costas Borges, go back up. And I just thought that was, for some reason, that was very funny. And the name just stuck in my head. I assigned him the being a Yugoslav, a Serbian, because a lot of friends there were Yugoslav. Though it's been pointed out to me that the name Costas Borges is probably the name Borges is, well, actually, when you look into the origins of it, it's sort of all over the shop, but I sort of aligned it with the Borgias in Venice, which is not a million miles from Serbia, and Costas is more Greek. So it was just sort of a generic ethnic name, which back then I was more interested in the spirit of it, but it just felt right. And also, gosh, there's a lot of people living in Australia that have, names from different countries. And I just thought, well, Europe's like that too. So why not? So, okay, his mum was Greek and his dad was from Venice. So what, and he happens to grow. So I didn't get too bogged down with that. And, not everybody who lives in England's surname is Smith or Jones or whatever. No, they're all in Jones.
Dave, if you need any help with Hungarian names, I'm your third best option.
Okay, so Major's a big name in Hungary, is it?
It's pronounced Major, and but I don't. But I'm in Australia. It's Major, so I don't need to be all weirdo. I've got a passport and everything, but it's pronounced in Hungary. I'm Major, and in Australia I'm Major.
Yeah, right.
Oh, okay.
Well, my surname's South African, and there it's de Vries, which is nothing like de Vries. So
Oh, right.
there you have it.
You were born, mate.
Well, I like to think that my stories aren't that bad, but
Very good of you. Very quick. I'll drink
I'll
that.
turn
one
down the
back.
brightness. Sorry. Yeah, so the dingo, and that's a really long preamble to the question that you actually asked is how did I get to create the dingo? The answer is it was to fit a piece of a puzzle that had already been established with the Night Fighter and the Lieutenant Smith and then the Southern Cross. Lieutenant Smith and the Night Fighter was sort of, I guess, in their late 20s. The Southern Cross was sort of the late teens, so the dingo then became older. Costas Borges, as a character, I thought I would make the dingo kind of, he could either be puppy dog-like or he could be dangerous and wolf-like. So I've allowed creators to sort of explore either option. So I thought he was very animal, very bestial, very in touch with his emotions, if you like. So I made Costas Borges more of a chess player, somebody who's, So, it was really, a lot of it for me is about trying to fit pieces of the puzzle. So to kangaroo hop sideways when
There we go.
there you go, piece of the puzzle.
Jigsaw?
Puzzle master.
So, like, for example, when I was doing stuff for DC or Marvel, and you wanted to create a villain, what I usually found myself thinking is, what is the thing that I want to put the character through? Like, if it was Batman, what is the hurdle that I want to put this character through? And then you try to create a villain that is the strongest, most vicious, the most totally going to make their character lose as possible things, so that they give them a really good run for their money. And then the next thing is make the villain the most charismatic and the most interesting character in the story. And you think of all the good, really cool villains, and they're almost, like Doctor Doom, or I don't know, the Penguin, the Joker. Batman.
Mr. Burns.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're all really, really interesting, fun, charismatic characters that you just love.
Oh, it's looking fantastic.
Oh, looking good there.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
And we've got another one just came in.
Ben, you know how we were
That's
talking
having
about
technical
coming up with a really
difficulties.
sort
Nice.
of action-packed cover for the Southern Squadron?
Yeah.
I reckon we should get Pete to do the layouts for it, because he is the most dynamic. Yeah.
That's true. That's right.
Hey, Dave, I got a dingo question.
Yep.
Have you ever considered, or have I missed out on it? Maybe has there ever been like a killaroo and a dingo crossover? Because I reckon that would be kind of sick.
Well,
Like in a good way.
Who did that last picture?
This year
Sid?
has just got so out of control. But at the end of last year, about this time last year, Darren and I were talking about doing a Killaroo Southern Squadron crossover story, and I've plotted out a big chunk of it, but so much has got in the way in the middle of it, and because he's got so many stories going on as well, it's sort of been parked. But yeah, the one of the features of the storyline, which Darren, if you're listening, and I haven't pitched this to you yet, is touching on the fact that both Killaroo and Dingo have these sort of animal senses, and that sense of animalness. It's a little more convoluted than that, but that I find that really interesting. The idea that I want to play around with the dingo is the idea that he's a character who how can any character transform? And it's kind of like I was reading about junk DNA probably about 10 years ago, and that's nice. I'm going to do that. One of the things I found really fascinating is that when any creature is in an embryonic state, like humans in particular, we will go through various different stages of evolution in the womb. I'm amazed that the evolutionists don't use this as good evidence for it. So we actually develop gills at certain points. We develop flippers, and we go through. I think whales actually develop fingers for a while, and then they, in various different embryonic states. And
wait, we get so at one point we have gills.
Yeah,
when we're embryo.
Yeah. I've heard that too.
So anybody who says that evolution can explain why embryos have gills, there's just no reason for it, because they can't use them. So basically, what happens is the embryo goes through all these various different stages of the evolution cycle. Obviously, when we were fish, we got to that stage, and that's when it sort of stopped. But we sort of progressed through all of these, and when we finally come out the other end, we're humans, with a few residual things which we shouldn't have, but like tails and all sorts of weird bits. But yeah, it's all in there. So I thought, and there we have it. And so, geez, quick, isn't he?
That's why it's called Quick Nick.
I know, the name's on the tin. You can't deny it.
The name's on the tin.
Well, now I just found some newfound respect for Waterworld.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Long time coming.
By the way, guys,
Dave died.
I know it's supposed to be drink and draw, but for me, it's drunk and draw. So I'm sorry, it's been a long night.
I think I've got the
just
night
for
off.
Dave died. That was Zach. Just so you know.
Zach's picture, was it?
Yeah, he's having some technical issues getting on, but he sent that picture through Facebook to say he's still drawing, because he was meant to be on tonight for everyone watching.
Oh, it's a shame.
No, that's a shame.
Nick, we haven't met yet, but I've been enjoying your work over the last few weeks. So nice stuff, really good.
I appreciate it.
Duncan, I've met before. He did an amazing Lieutenant Smith on the Smitty one, and the rest of you guys, I see you regularly. So
yeah,
good to catch up.
All right, so you've decided that you need the villain to be charismatic, to be put the hero through particular paces. What's the next step from a writer? How would you go about putting the look down in words, or do you just hand it off and say, "Show me your ideas, Ben"?
G'day, Sig, mate.
Do you mind if I tell everybody how we came up with the Fabulous Five or whatever, the Fantasy Five? And
Go for it.
yeah, well, this was something that Rob and I did with the Torn Southern Squadron characters. Is that we sort of had an idea, almost like a placeholder for the villain and his minions, and then we were trying to work out how to expand the story and make it more interesting. And what I realized was that what's kind of interesting about Torn is that the characters that surround him, one of the most interesting characters is this character of Redgum, which Pete invented or co-invented. And it's kind of both the cleverest and the dumbest origin of a superhero I've ever heard, which is that this little kid creates him by drawing him on a piece of paper with a magic pencil. And that's just like, oh fuck, you serious? And I just thought, okay, well, we are now in a world that is very different to any world. So I thought, okay, in this world, magic's a thing, and this is the first time I think the Southern Squadron had been in a world of magic. We'd had aliens and also, I don't think I'd ever had magic, just where the laws of physics and everything just gets, I mean, you always screw around with the laws of physics, but this is one where we didn't even pretend that they were. It's just like, okay, you can conjure a sentient being out of paper. So that was really, for me, such a liberation. I said to Rob, well, look, let's not even fuck around. Let's just put magic into this. And if we're going to do magic, one of the things that I was doing in the Southern Squadron series upcoming was I was creating this thing called a mind gate, where basically people can jump from. Wow, it's cool. Yeah,
killing it.
By the way, guys, I want copies of these because I've got plenty of the Lieutenant Smith ones, but I don't. Other than Alex's, I don't have your Night Fighter images. So if you finish them off, I'd love to get copies of them. So getting back, Drunken Drawer. I hope you're keeping these. I'd like to get copies.
Oh, I got them all.
Go.
That's a good likeness, mate.
Awesome.
Yeah, it is.
Of
just draw an egg.
It's jumping out of that hat.
Just draw an egg. Is that what I heard?
Yeah. Pretty easy.
All right, you're getting a live one, everyone.
Yeah, I know. Here we go. There's the. There we go.
It's the sharp eyebrows for me, Dave. Yeah. That's it.
Oh, look at this caricature.
Now you need to have the little shiny thing on the top of the head, like, the plastic square with a cross in the middle.
Another one.
Put it in an egg cup.
There you go. And that's achieved by going down the bowling alley.
Yeah, that's it.
All right.
That's awesome.
Good work, quick.
Yeah, so Rob and I, we got to okay, well, let's oh, that's right, this idea of this mind gate, which was basically the essence was that characters, I wanted to be able to create a scenario for the squadron where if I worked with different creators who had their own universes of characters, that they could interact. So I thought, right, I'm going to create a world where the job of the Southern Squadron is to protect Australia and to some extent the world from these extra dimensional characters coming in to our world through these portals, which they were called mind gates.
Right, cool.
And they're called mind gates because basically whatever the mind of the person is that is interacting with it, it will direct you to a world which closely aligns with it. So if you're a bit of a prick, it'll take you to a world where, that's sort of the dominant idea. So it's sort of idea.
Really cool.
Yeah. And
from Prickworld.
Yeah, Prickworld's a great place. I live in it all the time. So the advantage of that then is that you can then interact the characters with other characters from other dimensions, and look, we're seeing this now with DC and Marvel. They're going to go on these multiverse adventures, and that's going to be, we're seeing that with the Spider-Verse and with what's the Flash thing called, Flashpoint or something. So
Flashpoint, yep, that's it.
Yeah, so I'm kind of being as creative as they are, or as uncreative, call it what you will. So I was really combining that and thinking, okay, well, imagine a bunch of characters came out of a Tolkien world, and I think that Rob was that was the jump off. And then we said,
the main jump off was when I said, "What about we put the bad guys like they're in a castle?" And you said,
"Yes,
why don't we do a flying castle?" And I was like, "All right, all bets are off."
And then we said, "All right, how does it fly?" All right, and I'm immediately thinking of what was that Studio Ghibli thing? The walking castle.
Howl's Moving
there
Castle.
You go, yeah. So I thought, okay, well, if it can walk, it can fly, and it felt very manga-like. So away we went. And then if you're going to have a flying castle and magical beings, okay, we started ticking them off. We've got to have an elf, we've got to have a goblin, we've got to have and then we said, right, what is what elves normally like? Let's flip that on the head, and then we went sort of through that. And we literally and then we started picking on things like, okay, let's pick on some themes like loyalty. How would they feel about loyalty? And so you literally start to think about different attitudes. And we did this for about a month before we even started thinking about plots.
Wow.
And then once the characters all have their agendas, have their ideas, have their thoughts, have their approaches, Rob had come up with a sort of a very loose plot for a story, which, funnily enough, he wanted to throw right out. And I said, no, actually, there's some stuff in there we can use as a skeleton. But let's feed the elements in, but then we feed them through the paradigms and through the minds of these characters. And I'm a big fan of the story should be derived from characters' behavior. So if you can't justify the action based on the character, if the character's in service to the plot, then literally you've lost the plot. You've missed out on that. And you can pick that in stories if it's plot driven as opposed to character driven. And for those who are writers listening in, they would know this, that every story is plot driven and character driven. But the point is, where does the motive come from? What is the driver of the story? And if it's driven by characters,
can't wait.
Sorry, I missed that. What did Hayden say?
I think it's meant to say, can't wait to see what this whacked out story looks like.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Oh, it's beautiful. He's doing an amazing job. So yeah,
here's my pencil.
There you go.
Lovely.
You've seen some of the art, obviously. That's pretty damn right.
The Eggman.
You better get cracking, Ben, because we might sign Nick up for issue 3.
I haven't drawn the pencil yet. I'll do that.
So yeah,
good to see you back, Pete.
It's really just letting the characters tell the story. And the most interesting stories are the ones where the characters are in opposition to each other. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they have to be antagonists to the point of... for a minute there, I thought he had boobs.
What could he be holding?
I recognise those.
What is he holding? Whatever could that be?
No one knows. Stay tuned till the end of the show for the reveal.
I mean, I sort of talk about this with my students at uni, where we talk about you can have a scene where a guy is walking down a corridor and they bump into somebody, and that somebody wants to engage them in a conversation, and that conversation could be an exposition dump for all you know. That is a pretty boring scene. But if you make it that guy needs to get from one end of the hall to the other, and he needs to do it within 3 minutes. And the reason why is because if they don't, something bad will happen to them. Maybe they'll lose their job or whatever. Suddenly that exposition scene becomes more interesting because there's now this ticking time bomb, and there's also there's this element of obstacle that has been put in their path. Throw in the fact that they've got a weak bladder and they're about to piss themselves, and the person who's talking to them is a really important somebody in their life that they would be mortified if they. And now you've got humor in there, and you've also upped the stakes even further. And I've been able. It took me bloody ages to work this out, but ultimately I found that you can strip every single story down, whether it's the entire story or a scene or even just a moment in the scene, down to one simple expression, and that
Links
is
already.
Great, Dave.
he's flying, isn't he?
And that is what, Dave?
And that is somebody wants something that's difficult to get. And basically, the somebody is the main character, the something is their objective, and that's so often forgotten in any given moment or scene. If you watch a scene and you're bored, it's because you say, okay, who's the main character? Sometimes it's unclear, so you've failed on the somebody straight away. Because having 5 people in the scene isn't a scene. There's one person who you have to identify with, even if they're not the protagonist of the entire story. Every scene belongs to one character, and if it doesn't, then you fucked it up. So somebody wants something. We have to know what it is, and that something can be, I want to get to the end of the hall. That's it. It doesn't have to be complex. What makes that scene interesting then is the obstacles that you put in their path. And you can have a few obstacles, and those obstacles can be internal or external. Ideally, they'll be both. And you can really crank it up if there are it's the wants and needs things. That's the internal versus external challenges, where you actually have like where the obstacles are in conflict with each other. So, for example, a good internal external conflict is a person wants to eat chocolate cake, but they need to lose weight. So the two things are diametrically opposite. That will throw guilt and moral ambiguity into the story. It can really make it interesting. When I was in Hollywood,
Hey, Dave, I've got to interrupt you. I've got a pair of obstacles here I want to show you.
Yeah, they need smiley faces.
Nick, we had a Hollywood story coming up, and you just completely ruined it.
As you went,
so Dave, when you were in Hollywood,
I'm trying to work here,
and I was
Hollywood, like Los Angeles or Hollywood, Florida?
Los Angeles, Hollywood, yeah, not the one in South Australia. And I was visiting this actor who was actually one of the actors. He played one of the Irish mobsters in the what's it, Anarchy, Sons of Anarchy series, yeah. And so he was actually an Aussie, and he was a friend of a friend, and they said, check him out. I rang him up, and he said, I'd love to meet you. And he said, I actually have a class of students. I'd like you to come along and sort of talk to them as a director. So I said, okay, that'd be fun. And then he did that horrible thing of saying, okay, they started to act out a scene, and then he said, Dave, would you like to direct them? And I thought, oh shit, I don't know the story, I don't know the but it was actually pretty simple, because all I had to say, okay, so I just said to each actor, right, and you've probably heard this in movies all the time, they say, to actors, what's your motivation? And people sort of, oh, what's that mean? Well, basically I said to each character, what is it that more than anything else that you want to do? Never mind about what the plot of the scene is. Do you want to get over to that side of the room? Do you want to get away from them? Do you want to seduce them? What is it that you're trying to achieve? And they were able to tell me that. Fortunately, in the scene, they were things in opposition to each other. I said, right, the dialogue doesn't matter, because most of the time what we say is irrelevant to what we think. We say what... When you talk to people, whether it's in the pub or in any social setting, there is an underlying motivation that you have, something that you want to get across, and then behind that, everything then is sort of subtext and code. And we, sometimes it can be straightforward, but very rarely do we talk in straight language. Almost always, we're frightened about revealing too much about ourselves. We're frightened about putting ourselves in a position we can't walk away from something if we say something too emphatic. So we always give ourselves that wriggle room. That wriggle room is what makes the interactions interesting, but it's the underlying thing that you actually really would like to say if you had the balls but didn't. That's the core, that's the key, that's the thing that the character has to have. If you understand that about every character that you're doing, the stories will write themselves, because the moment you get them in the room, you'll never get writer's block, because more often than not, Rob, as you remember, we just had so many things we wanted to explore, and we just go, there's not enough pages, there's not enough panels, we just... We had to abandon so much, didn't we? That there was screeds of notes that, and both of us are going, okay, I'm going to use that in my next story. And
Yeah. Well,
I haven't said a thing about the name of the characters, or what they look like, or their powers, or the fact that one's a dwarf. We've sort of hinted at it. What I've been talking about is, their needs, their wants. I haven't even talked about their personalities yet. most of the stuff that people put into characters when they design characters is the superficial shit that everybody thinks is important, but really isn't. I know I'm talking a lot, but I guess that's why you got me on here. But
I agree with you, Dave. I think you're
It's all
making
good.
great points. No, okay, Dave, like I had the same thing when I was working in China and I was getting scripts for the show I was working on, and I kept throwing the scripts back saying like, I don't know what the character. I said I need to know what the character's problem is in the first 20 seconds so I can be invested, and I want to see how he solves it. I said I don't want this like hold this just like exposition or whatever scripts where we're just drawing all these things, and I don't know. Like 3 minutes in, I don't know what's going on, who's who, why they're there, why am I watching this? And so
you know who does it really, really well is those bastards in Hollywood who we like to mock, but they really know what they're doing. There's you guys seen Gone in 60 Seconds?
A long time ago.
If you want to know what the story is, it's in the dumbest down, simplest form. It's about a guy who's an ex-thief of an ex-car thief who has to steal 50 cars in one night, and they're the hottest, souped up cars you can imagine. That's it. But that's not a very interesting story. And if you weren't a petrol head, you go, well, so what? So Hollywood goes one step better. This is a guy who has to steal these cars because his brother then they build the backstory around it and they make him heroic. So they say this is a guy who used to be a car thief who's gone straight. He does not want to steal cars anymore, but he's forced out of retirement because his brother, who has lived up to his reputation, has gone out and tried to steal some cars, has fucked up. The brother is about to be murdered by the mob. And now if our hero does not steal his 50 cars in 24 hours, his brother is going to be brutally murdered. Okay, now it's no longer a story about a guy stealing cars, although it's still that. But what it really is, I like that one. I like the jaw. I think you've got that really down.
Golly, spend some time on that face. Good work.
I'm going to use that on my card, I reckon.
That's yours.
So suddenly this character is become a lot more interesting because, his motive is he's a hero, and a hero is defined as someone who protects and serves. Whether they're an anti-hero, which uses, like the Godfather type, kill people, but it's always to protect and serve the family or others, or the main hero who actually uses, solid moral means. And so Hollywood just really nails it. They just say, okay, well, we've got a character. He's got to steal his cars, but let's make him a hero. So he's doing it to protect his brother. And then if you can make it that it's at the risk of his own safety, even better. So then they throw in another story plot element, which is that by coming out of retirement, that's drawn the attention of the cops who are now looking out from it. All he has to do to avoid being captured is to give up and not do this. But if he does that, then he is going to have his brother die. So now he's saving his brother's life at the risk of his own liberty. And all of this is just woven into this interest. And then, of course, he then has all these secondary characters who are like his posse, and they all have interesting sort of backstories that of a similar nature. And so suddenly, even if you don't give a shit about cars, you're kind of into the story now because you are interested in the way these characters interact with each other. You can make any story interesting just by building the characters and the characters' motivation into the underlying core of it. And the other thing is, and this is another story. This is a story I tell my students at uni. Designing a character, and I'm going to talk about two characters that are based on they were based around the city of New York, and this is New York set in the 1930s. One of the characters was a champion of the city of New York as it was in the 1930s, which was a beacon of hope for people in Europe who were being persecuted, the Jews being persecuted, and people in general being persecuted by the rise of Nazism. And they escaped to America, the land of freedom, hope, and opportunity. And this character is a migrant. He comes to the country. The things which he does in his own country are not particularly special there, but when he comes to America, they make him almost superpowered, in the same way that if you go to America, your accent just, is absolutely drives everybody nuts. So he becomes effectively this super character because of his native born place that he came from. He embraces the land that has given him this hope and opportunity, so much so that he wraps himself in the flag. And yes, he becomes superpowered, and he fights for truth, justice, and the American way. And of course, I'm describing Superman. Superman is just a parable for the migrant, and it's also a representation of there it is, and he's even got the S on his head, which is perfect. And Superman is also not just about the migrant, but it's also about the story of New York in its ideal form, the thing that makes New York amazing and wonderful. There's another New York.
Twin Towers there, Nick?
Yeah. This is
out
the
of
70s.
date.
But there's another New York, and this is the New York of the mean streets, the dark New York, the place where people can be murdered and where they can actually see their parents killed in front of them. This is a place of fear and danger, the film noir New York. And there's another character that is created in this New York, and this is the character who sees his parents suffer as and you're all nodding because you know exactly where I'm going. And so, yeah, you've created. So we actually then take the city of New York and give it two names: Metropolis, which literally means city, and Gotham, which also means city. The Gotham version is the dark, mean, horrible, and the character wears dark, scary clothes. He almost looks like a bloody vampire. He's a creature of the night, and so you create two different characters, and they ultimately become Superman and Batman, both two representations of New York City. And I've just described two characters in enormous detail, except what have not I described? I've only just mentioned their names. I've never mentioned their identities. I've never mentioned the Superman that is a reporter, or the Bruce Wayne, or any of that shit. I didn't mention the Batcave. I didn't mention Jimmy Ives. What did I talk about? I talked about the cities. I talked about the rationale of the cities, the themes of those cities, and how those characters would be developed. But in your head, I reckon, even if you'd never seen Superman or Batman, and I said, okay, now design a character that looks like the hopeful version of America based on the American flag. You might not get Superman's costume, but you get something not a million miles from it. Batman, if I mentioned vampires, you'd probably end up doing a pretty dark cape-wearing, critter. And it's amazing how when you actually understand the core, and this is what Alex was talking about, when you understand the core behind what the character's purpose is, what their motivations are, but also the themes that they represent within the story. That is really what the core of the story, the characters are. If you ask kids to describe Batman, they'll start getting into superficial crap to do with their costumes. But when you look at Batman, there are so many versions of him. So long as you make him predominantly dark, it can be anything from grey to blue to black. He's got pointy ears, but the pointy ears can be quite short, or they can be really, really long. A cape with bat scallops, and that's kind of all you need. The rest is all, and then everybody will play with the costume, but we'll still recognise it as Batman. You probably need to have the bat emblem on his chest. You tell most people describe Superman, and I'll say he wears a blue bodysuit and red boots and a red cape, and maybe undies on the outside, and everybody kind of knows there's an S shape. And I'm sure we can all draw the logo, but I would say most people would just draw an S, and they'd probably put it in a bloody circle, and it doesn't matter.
Oh, guilty.
And yet the shape of the S outline, you guys all know where they came from, don't you? No. It's a shield. It's basically a shield with an S in it, and that's it.
Two fish.
And as Nick did before, the other way that they code Superman so that we know he's Superman, because he doesn't wear a mask, they put a bloody S on his forehead, and then we know immediately, it's Superman. That's it. You draw that S on his head, and immediately everybody goes, it's Superman. You don't even need the cape, and you can work it out.
I never thought of it as an S on his head.
Yeah, it's always an S.
Really? Genius of it.
Really?
No, not once did I think that.
I thought that was common.
I think that is generally the genius of it, because a lot of people don't. When you point it out, it's amazing how few people recognise it. But they all know that there's that twirly shape on the head, no question.
Was that in the early Superman? I think that's only in the recent one, isn't it?
Well, I'd go back a
the
while.
S shape?
He's always had a spit curl, but I didn't realise.
No, he's always had that S curl in his hair.
Yeah.
Well, he comes from. It's designed by two Jewish men, and that's why he's got big black curly hair. It's just a little hint at the heritage. There you go.
Nice.
Wouldn't he have like two Oh no, he wouldn't have that. So I was just thinking of something else.
It's a pity you
Curly's.
didn't have those acidic tags.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. But I was going to say, like, you can't have two S's there because that's just not right.
Here we go.
It's not what.
Them things.
That is so Boston, isn't it? No, sorry, it's like Brooklyn.
Nice one,
I
Soups.
remember the TV.
Oy vey.
TV show. He never had it.
Hey.
He had his hair slicked back.
Undies on the outside for the win.
Let's take a bit of a left turn. You mentioned vampires. Can you tell us a Bo Jardine story?
Hi.
We were meant to have Bo on the
Zach.
show last week, and we didn't get to have him in the end. Can you just give us a Bo story of some sort? Just maybe how you met or your first experiences
God,
with
there's so many.
whatever you got.
Yeah, there's so many, but I feel like if I tell them, I would be letting out too much.
The ones you're allowed.
I've known Bo for 35 years, something like that. I met him through the guys in Fantastique. He did a vampire story in Fantastique #1. I think I told the story of how Fantastique got going. So he was a regular contributor, as I was, and he was also a friend of Steve Carter and Des Waterman, who, with Frank McConaughey, they were kind of like the holy trinity of the Fantastique world. I lived near Bo. He lived in Surrey Hills, and so did I. So we would often catch up. He was also a regular at the Ugle Club, and so we would catch up. I don't know. We just always got on. I'm not quite sure. We came from sort of very different backgrounds, but we both kind of like the same things. And what I like about Bo is he's not afraid to be outrageous, and he tells really, really fun stories.
Yeah.
And
That's a good segue. Thanks.
Sorry?
Sorry, you just give me a great segue to something outrageous and a little politically incorrect that was sent in by Danny Nolan,
Okay, yeah.
the dingo.
See,
Look at the
I was
dog.
thinking of doing something like that, but I was like, no, I'm not going there.
Yeah, don't go
Zach's
there.
here, by the
Don't
way.
go there.
Everybody, Zach's here. Not,
Yeah, Zach, we said hello. You weren't
Who's
listening.
I wasn't listening. Holy crap! No, I'm sorry, Zach. I'm just.
All right, Zach.
stupid. I was going to use an R word, but that's not.
No, it's
good anymore.
okay.
Sorry. Hey, I'm happy to see you, as you can see.
Yeah,
You've already finished, haven't you, Zach?
So I just had to use that as I was trying to find a way to just fit that one in. We've had Nick May send in a picture. I'll just show that as well. Let me know if you can see it.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
That's great. That is really good.
Can you see it now?
Oh,
That's a
amazing.
ripper, mate. Absolutely.
I must admit, the versions of the Southern Squadron I like the most at the moment are the more cartoony, sort of slightly, cute versions. So I really like that. It's cool.
And we've got one for a new person sending in art, Michelle.
good.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
May's
It's
partner.
looking good, Zach.
Oh, that's
Sorry,
good.
hang on.
Oh,
Nice.
nice.
Teamwork.
Nice. Very good.
Yeah, that's Michelle.
that?
I believe that's
Awesome.
pronouncing the name right there, Michelle. I hope. Yeah.
Yeah, it is Michelle. Michelle, did you do all of that, or did Dan pencil it and you painted it, or do a comment? I want to know.
Yeah, we'll look in the comments, and we've got. Oh no.
You know that
I'll
artist,
see
do
if she's
you?
commenting over here. Hang on.
Yeah, well, so Nick May's brother is Dan May, and Michelle is Dan May's partner.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's an artist.
Hey,
I just
Dan.
found out tonight.
Dan is a cartoonist and she's a painter, and then I just wondered if that was a powers combined
Right.
thing,
Yeah.
or if she's done it by herself, or
Yeah. Very good.
either way, awesome, and thank you for sending it in.
Boom.
There's Bo.
Nice.
There you go.
Bo.
Yeah.
Powers combined.
Dave, if the Southern Squadron could team up with any IP, like from, let's say, Godzilla, the Devil's Toilet,
Oh,
I
I
don't
see.
know,
Yeah.
pick anything.
Devil's toilet.
Michelle drew it. Nice. Thanks, Dan.
Yeah, nice.
Awesome.
We've got a
work,
mystery
Michelle.
user.
Oh, damn.
They're glad they made it to the show. Sorry, Facebook users, we can't see your name.
Yeah.
Maybe that is their name.
I mean, it would be
true.
tempting to say I'd love to see them team up or go against the Hulk and Batman. That would be fun.
Yeah.
Let's not dick around. Let's combine. I don't know. I'm in all seriousness. I think any character that's well worked through can give other characters interesting sort of a dynamic to bounce off. And so, like the idea that I want to do with the Killaroo, which I've still got to sort of flesh out fully and pitch to Darren, is actually an idea that I really, really would love to do. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Who else? I don't know. At the moment, I'm doing a crossover with Torn, Red Gum, and Billabong, and I'm really enjoying that because those are characters that have huge potential. And there's how many creative teams? There's yourself. There's Hayden, George. I guess Gary has sort of got his finger in every pie because he's sort of like the godfather and the grandfather of them all. But then the artists like Ben and Peter are obviously and Ken are all putting their spin on it. Then there's you and me working on it as well. There's so much sort of stuff going on there, and what's really fun is like, remember you and I were we started messing around with the stories with Torn, and Torn can change, he can transform. So we started saying, okay, Torn can Torn fly? No. Okay, right. Can he turn into an eagle? Good. Yes. All right. Then we'll turn him into an eagle. And then the next thing we know, bloody Pete and George are doing Torn as a wedge tail.
I've drawn about 4 pages of him as a bloody eagle.
And we've been writing our eagle story. Yeah, we've been writing our bloody eagle story back in January, and we go, oh God. So, and I'm sure, in fairness to George, he probably had it, 3 years back, But this is the thing, you sort of look at the characters and say, how can we push it and turn it around? We did a character, was it a rabbit or in the third story where it's almost like he becomes Bugs Bunny. He becomes I'm sure it was a rabbit.
We turned him into a cat.
Oh, no, that's right, a flying squirrel. Something like that.
Yeah, sugar glider, that's right. Yeah.
Sugar glider, that's right. But then we thought, okay, well, if he could be a sugar glider, he'd probably sing and talk. So we got him singing "Here I Come to Save the Day," the old Mighty Mouse stuff. You just suddenly find that. So I think Torn is a really, really fun character because there are so many things that he can do, and there's a lot of fun with that. I'm doing a story at the moment with Tad where we're teaming up the Southern Squadron and Dark Nebula, and effectively we're retconning the Southern Squadron into the Dark Nebula origin story, which is really interesting. And the trick was to do it. Jesus, Pete, that's
nice one, Peter.
That's great.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And the real trick there was to. I always feel like when I'm working on an established property or an established storyline that you're trying to change, the goal is to keep as much of what was there as possible. Interestingly, in Hollywood, you get less credit for doing that than if you actually throw everything out and start over. But I actually think the real challenge is to be as honest and as true to what was there already. And if you can then bring a lot of new stuff to it without throwing out the stuff that was originally there and actually build upon it. Rather than starting from scratch, you're kind of building and layering things in a much deeper way. But then there are some characters like, funny enough, Batman, which I did do some Batman stuff for DC. The character's kind of overcooked, and I remember joking that you could do anything but make him gay, but I reckon that's probably now on the table as well. So it's not literally everything is permissible. So I don't know. It's But I think there is a certain point where you stretch the rubber band too far and the character starts to lose its essence.
Yep.
I think, like, for example, I don't know if I said this already in one of the earlier shows, but when they were talking about changing James Bond, there was talk about making Idris Elba the James Bond character. I thought, yeah, that'll probably work quite well. I don't think race matters, but James Bond to me still has to be this very blokey guy who wears a suit and tie, who is, let's be honest, a bit of a dick and a bit of a misogynist, but he's also really good with drinking wine, and he's the ultimate man's man and the seducer. He's the suave character, and if you start to make him politically correct, you've kind of, I think you've stretched the character so far it's no longer James Bond. It doesn't mean it's not going to be an interesting character, but now you maybe, I don't know, there are so many spy characters, just do one of those. And for that reason, I think James Bond is probably one of those few characters that you couldn't swap his gender. I think if you made James Bond a female, there are very few characters where that would fail, but that is definitely one. You could make Captain America female. I don't think there would be any problem at all. Batman could be a female. And they've effectively done that by calling her Batwoman, or Batgirl. But it is essentially just Batman. I'm trying to think of another. Every male, like Hulk, has had She-Hulk. I'm trying to think of a character that you could not flip the gender. And I literally think the only one I could think of is James Bond, because his blokiness, his maleness, is such a integral part of what makes that character who they are.
I don't think you could make Skeletor or Starscream. Those are two other characters that couldn't be women.
Yeah,
like villains, but like
could be argued there though.
I don't think you maybe Skeletor. I think you could have like a female skeleton evil lady, maybe. But I don't think you could do Starscream
with a Skeletor face. That would be a female Skeletor.
Yes, I think you could do a female Skeletor, but I don't think you could do Starscream from Transformers.
But they have effectively turned He-Man into a female, haven't they? And
She-Ra.
Yeah. Well, no, they phased He-Man out of his own series and they brought his sister in or something, and it's all of that.
I didn't know that.
Oh, isn't She-Ra his sister?
Well, yeah, coming back.
She-Ra was turned into a trans male. So.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm so out of touch with today's cartoons.
I actually think that's probably jumping the shark as well, because She-Ra, the name on the tin, again, it's a little bit,
yeah, I never heard of that.
But no, it's fascinating.
They're
trying everything. Some of it'll stick, some of it won't, and it's always good to explore characters.
Yeah, that's good.
I haven't read it yet, but I'm kind of intrigued to see what's going on with the Superman idea that Tom's doing. He's a good writer, so I suspect he'll handle it well. I don't know.
So, Dave, I've got a question on the topic then. Do you reckon it's a better idea that instead of just rejigging old characters to fit today's narrative, wouldn't it be better to just create...
nice. Fantastic.
That's a lovely shot, yeah.
By just creating new characters to fit today's narrative, so that way, you know, people that like the old characters the way they are, you've got that, and then instead of having... also just kind of have new characters. I don't know. Personally, I just like the idea of more new characters than tired 50, 60-year-old IP. What's your take?
I actually think the James Bond franchise missed an opportunity, because I don't think it wasn't the Spectre, it was the one before that. But remember how Moneypenny, suddenly they made Moneypenny black, and also she became an action character rather than just sitting in the office, as M's personal assistant and flirting with James Bond. And she was, I think from memory, she was like a sniper as well. And she, I thought, well, right, why not just make Moneypenny 008 or, whatever. Yeah. I generally thought they might have spun her off into her own character, built her up, maybe given her 2 or 3, episodes of James Bond where they sort of build up her character and then give her a spin-off, and that would have worked very, very well. I haven't seen it yet, but the most recent James Bond, they gave the role or the 007 to a female character who was also black, and they seemed to push the angle in the marketing that it was going to be like James Bond is now going to become a black woman, and that was sort of the way. And of course, everybody got outraged, and I just thought, listen, if they do that, it's going to be nonsense. But apparently, that's not what happened at all. In fact, those people who were most critical about it online, when they saw it, said actually that the character worked quite well. You know, she was respectful to the main character, and it worked beautifully. So there's no reason why James Bond couldn't retire as 007 and that number be handed on to someone else. But it's just not James Bond anymore. And then eventually you're just going to reboot the series and you go back to the original James Bond. So then you've lost that new version of the character. So it might be better just to spin it off into their own. That would be my view. I don't know.
Cool. Well, we've got some arts come in, so I'll share. It's actually quite a bit because of.
Wow, we've been talking an hour. Jesus.
Yeah, we're talking an hour, so we're at the end. So I will start with. We've done Michelle, so Duncan's sent his in. Oh, sorry, I'm doing it over top of that.
Cool.
Sorry, Nick, I didn't see you doing that.
That was awesome. Oh, I like that.
Wow,
That's good.
jeez, mate. That's a ripper. Jeez.
Who did that?
Duncan.
Duncan.
Just to your
Recognise his
left.
style.
Fantastic.
Nice.
And we've got
Right.
Davo,
Well done.
which is Tony Davidson. He sent this little cartoon one in.
Ah, good on you, Davo.
Oh, I love that.
See it, Spency?
Yeah,
Oh, so I've got to do a double every time for you. Okay.
I think so. I don't know why.
I'll just make that a habit. A
Yeah.
habit.
That's what I do.
Okay, we've got
Yeah.
Spedsies now as well.
Oh, there you
Ah,
go.
Twice the Spedsy can see it.
Ah, there we go.
Yeah.
Hugging the toilet. Nice. And we've got Dan
I
May.
We are going to have to do a Devil's Toilet crossover, mate.
Yeah.
There you asked a question. Okay, it's going to be Devil's Toilet. That's the one I'm
Yeah,
doing.
right.
That's
Nice,
cool. Who
Dan.
did that?
That's Dan May.
Dan May. Yeah.
Oh,
Good on you,
cool.
Dan.
And then we got Robbie. I think everyone knows Robbie.
Yeah,
Twice
good
the
Rob.
Spedsy.
Good on you, Robbie. Beauty.
Great work.
And then it's that
Good
time
work,
of the
Dan.
night to find out who is the hottest.
Come on, baby.
Yep, Spedsy's ready. Spedsy's ready.
Dave,
Dave.
Dave, is it? Or Duncan?
Looks like it's Dave or
Dave
Duncan.
or
I'm not
Duncan?
quite sure.
I think that's
Yeah.
Duncan. That's
Awesome.
Great. Nice work, Alex.
I wanted to actually initially I wanted him to hold like a little baby just to kind of show that not all
Yeah.
dingoes eat babies, but I was like, that's a bit corny, isn't it?
Seriously, in some of the early stories, there were dingo jokes.
Yeah, there would have been.
I think it was in the Oz Comics ones that they actually do joke about him hanging around Ayers Rock and shit like that. So but back then it probably was too.
So Dave, do you reckon you could have like a crossover story? Maybe I'm pitching something, but you've got Killaroo and Dingo, and they go up to China and just beat the shit out of like Tai Chi Panda because Kung Fu Panda's taken, or something along like other animals. I didn't think this one through. I just
I reckon
You just
it
have to
was
work
whoever-
China in there somewhere.
yeah. I'm just
let's make that panda character actually an evil crime boss who is manipulating the government into preventing Australian wine from being exported into China.
exactly.
And we beat the living shit out of him and torture him slowly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've got that going on.
Sorry.
So you've got Kung Fu. So you got Killaroo Killaroo and Dingo trying to kick that panda's ass, and then you've got this like little sly possum who's just selling iron ore to them.
Yeah.
That looks awesome,
Dave.
Dave.
That's looking awesome, Dave.
That's
Wow,
really
that
good.
coming over your back fence.
Yeah.
Let's get that in so quick.
That's great, Dave.
That fence is
That's
amazing
awesome.
that you did that.
Yeah.
Wow.
I really want copies of these, Shane. Seriously.
I'll chase them up. Zach will chase them up as well. We'll get
If you're
Rob to chase them
sweet
up. Everyone will chase them up.
If you're sweet
I'll
talk,
check
Dave,
mine
you might
for
even
you.
send it to you.
For your Shane, if you wanted to pop it up.
I've sent it through. Have you
Yeah, it's on your
Hey.
messenger.
Zach, I just wanted
sorry, I
to
wasn't
say,
monitoring that at the moment. Hang on, I'll bring it up.
Zach,
Keep
Shane was
talking.
saying that Zach, Shane was saying today that you had a big influence over the look and the design of the Presents books and the Noir books.
Yes.
Very
I
modest.
did talk to him about it. I did show him other examples.
Yeah, no, I
I have a
was
degree
just
in
saying to
graphic
Shane,
design, so I fiddle.
if people haven't picked these ones up yet, they're well worth it. They are some of the best presented comics I've seen in a very long time. There's a very professional approach to it. The quality is over the top. Brilliant. I've got the 8 of them, and I think this is the start of something pretty exciting. So well done to everybody involved. But yeah, I think Zach, you and Shane have really set the bar very, very high. So give yourselves a big pat on the back.
Hell yeah!
Oh no, issue 2's coming out.
Petting everybody's.
Issue 2 is out.
And
Issue
if those
2
at home want to pat them
Kickstarter
on the
is
back,
there.
please go to presents.comx.studio.
Hang on, give me a sec. I'll bring it up.
And you can
Where did I put it?
pat both Zach and Sizzle on the back, and the 8 creators who put the books together. Sign up for the new Kickstarter. And now let's run the trailer.
There's a trailer?
I just want to see what you do.
Here we go.
Ben, where's your cat?
What are you talking about? We haven't seen it.
Hey, who did the little Sizzle and Spedsy characters on your logo? Who was that?
That was the Major.
Oh, that was Alex.
Oh, that was you, Alex. Okay.
Yeah.
They're great. I love them. They're just...
Yeah, but I have to fix that up because Shane's drinking the wrong drink. It should be a V, not 4X, because he doesn't drink alcohol. So I got to fix that. Because I thought at the time I didn't know. I wasn't sure if he drinks or will drink ever again. So I figured, he's a Queenslander, so I'll just put a 4X. But now
it fit well.
Yeah. And then,
so where's
but
everybody
Rob
from?
does. Sorry.
So where's everyone from? Zach, you're from Queensland?
New South Wales.
New South
I'm
Wales?
from Queensland.
Okay. I know Pete and Ben, you're both victorious. Spency. Duncan, where are you from?
New South Wales.
Okay. Alex, you're in Sydney as well. And Dave, where are you?
The Mallee, mate.
Oh, okay. So you're straddling all three.
Yeah, up the corner of South Australia, New South Wales, and Victoria.
Yeah.
Nice.
Mildura.
Can't go anywhere.
And Dave, you got this comment. Dave Dye, sorry.
Wow.
I'd also like to bring this one up because Mark was our first person to pledge on the Presents Issue 2 Kickstarter.
Thanks, Mark.
He got in there.
he
I
was.
had only just launched it. I don't even know how he knew I'd launched it, but he was onto it. I didn't even get to say 0. So
Mark
thank you,
is
Mark.
awesome. Mark
Thanks,
has bought
Mark. Yeah,
everybody's
good support.
books, almost everybody's books that are on this show. Yeah.
Can't say enough
Kudos, Mark.
good things about Mark. Yes.
Yeah.
Where is it? Can you see it?
Oh, hang on. I'll bring you up.
There it is.
There you go. You got it. in case Shane forgot.
Now it can always point at
That's going on the website. That's awesome. That's great.
So who haven't I picked on yet? Peter. Sorry, you sent yours through. I just need to bring it up so everyone can see it. And I'll bring it up twice so Spedsy can see it.
Yeah, very good, Pete.
Right.
Wicked.
Very good, mate.
Awesome, Pete.
Great.
And you guys have all seen the Southern Squadron ad on the back of the Presents that Pete did all the artwork for. If anybody's wondering, yeah, there it is.
That's so cool.
Nice.
Yeah, they did a good job on that, didn't he?
That's
Yeah,
brilliant.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Wait, what's that on the back of? Oh, Presents.
Presents.
Well, I'm actually holding up this.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Now I had
Once
to go.
again, Spedsy gets a plug.
I had to go at Pete's work too, and I thought I'd just preempt that little collaboration that's on its way. Yeah, I can animate too, Major.
Oh, look at that. You're faster too, dude. You look at that. You do it in like 3 minutes. What takes me 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Why is... Oh, I just noticed. Sorry. I noticed my webcam is the old one. It's not the one that follows you around.
Oh, okay. Ben, we haven't picked on you tonight.
No, this will be worth
Yeah.
seeing.
Yeah, where's your cat? I miss your cat.
What's that?
I miss your cat.
Oh, yeah, no, it's the studio. No, not bothered.
You're not at the kitchen table tonight.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Zach's cat makes it. Oh, there you go.
Oh, yeah, well.
Yeah.
It's a top cat.
All right, so this is Costas. Hang on, what's the... Oh, there. Okay, it's Costas.
Oh, golly.
Oh, it looks really good.
Wow.
Amazing.
And he transforms too.
Way.
Oh, dude, that's amazing.
And then
That's awesome. I love it.
Oh, the animation game.
I love it.
Wow.
Good work, Ben.
I want that for the website too, mate.
Great.
That's really good, Ben. I love it.
That's
great.
amazing.
Well done, mate.
Does Costas appear in our book? I don't.
Yes,
think
he does.
Oh, does
He
he?
appears in book 2 when he's in the shower when the Fantasy 5 attack, and he comes rushing
right.
out in a towel, and yeah, so it's
Yeah. Awesome. Wicked.
Nice.
Well, tonight we've skipped the D&D questions, so we're going to go straight to...
This poor person is looking through the newspaper for info on what projects our artists have been working on. And this lost individual is using a map to find where she can follow our artists on social media and buy their books. How about we save them the trouble and just tell them? We call this next segment Shameless Self-Promotion.
And I'm going to start with my shameless self-promotion of Presents Issue 2 Kickstarter. Just go to presents.comx.studio and that'll take you straight to the Kickstarter. There are many different levels there for you to pledge on, so depending on your budget, depending on what you want, there's there. And we've also got add-ons, which are all the Issue 1 gear, in case you want to do a bit of a catch-up. You didn't get the first Kickstarter. They're in the add-ons, so check them out when you pledge on Issue 2, and you'll be able to get something from Issue 1. And there's, we're showing off some covers there. Awesome. Over to you, Spedsy.
It may have been shameless, but it definitely wasn't shameless.
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
Awesome. Yes.
I'm here for another few minutes. I've got a bunch of things going. I just got the finished pages to Ring Around the Rosie, which is a thing that me and Lee Chalker have been putting together with Bo Jardine and Ryan Vella. So the pencils are done for part 1 that'll be in Presents 4. I've been working on Vamoose 3, my Presents 3. Larrikin and Just is a book with Peter Fairfax that is just finished inking. And then we've got a few torn books on the way. Crossover that I would love to tell you about that I'm not allowed to yet. Ben keeps showing me cool pages via Dave for Torn Southern Squadron and something about a budgie. Go, Nick.
I'm working on my budgie book, page 72 of 80. I'm also going to compile pictures of my dad's trek across Australia into some sort of book as well.
Oh, nice.
Dave.
There's a couple of crossovers coming up. The one that Rob mentioned, he and I wrote a Torn Southern Squadron 3-parter, which is going to be a crossover, which Gary will probably kill me for saying this, but I think the goal is to try and get it out sort of early next year, sort of around maybe March, April, something like that. That'll be then followed up by a Southern Squadron Dark Nebula crossover. Those are going to be 2 parts of a bigger sort of, I guess, maxi series, a mini series, which is there's going to be a Torn Southern Squadron crossover, a Southern Squadron Dark Nebula crossover, and then, you guessed it, a Torn Dark Nebula crossover, which Hayden and Tad are writing. So the 3 all combined, it's going to be, so you'll get each of those 3 sets of characters combining for a total of 9 books. So that's going to be fun. I'm helping Tad at the moment with Dark Nebula 10, which is going to be Dark Nebula in Tasmania, coming up against dinosaurs, which is going to be a lot of fun. And that one's going to be attached to the Rick McClune series of books. So that'll be an add-on that you'll be able to catch up with. I'm probably giving away too much information, but I don't care. Also, Bo Jardine, Bodine America, call him what you will. He has done this amazing work where he's sort of done a sort of an alternate version of the Southern Squadron, which we're calling Southern Squadron Dark, set in another universe. There will be time when that crosses over with the Southern Squadron into the future, and a lot of characters from Australia's past, like Jackaroo and Hairbutt and that, and even the Dark Nebula, or sort of like evil versions of them appear in this story. That's going to be also coming out about this time. I'm also working on a regular ongoing series of the Southern Squadron, which I hope will come out towards the end of next year, because the Southern Squadron in 2023 will be 40 years old. So that will be we'll be aiming for that. And during that period, I've actually got some stuff that's either never appeared in Australia, it's only been printed in the States, and some even pre-Cyclone stuff, which I'm going to sort of try and have out. So that'll be a lot of fun. I've already hinted at this idea of a Killaroo Southern Squadron crossover, which I would like to see maybe coming out around that time as well. And the idea of the ongoing Southern Squadron series will be that they'll come out in 3-part story arcs, and then the story will jump like a month, and then they'll have the next 3, and then it'll jump a month and the next 3, and so on. And those months in between the story arcs will be where we insert all of these other fun little pieces. So I've been helping Gary Della with the Reverie website, and more of that information will start to populate the website over time. But if you haven't checked it out yet, go to, I think it's reverieproductions.com. .au. Yeah, Reverie's doing a lot of really interesting stuff, as is ComX. And I think between you guys, there's so much coming out, and I think all of you are working for one or both. This is a very exciting time. This feels like, for me, what we were doing back in the 80s when we had Cyclone Fantastique and all those other guys all doing it. And this is the word renaissance that's getting chucked around. I think there's a lot to be said for that. I think it's awesome. And I want one of those hats. I think you said you'd get me one.
Yep, I'll be getting you one. Don't worry about that.
And finally, I'm also going to be doing a 4-part story for ComX next year, and in Present.
In Presents, yep.
Cool. When did that start? Number 5 or something like that?
I think it's issue 5 through to issue 9. Yeah.
So it'll be 4 individual self-contained stories, one based around each of the 4 characters, but the stories will weave into a central story. And the way I explained it to Shane is that you've seen the film Reservoir Dogs, you'll know what I'm getting at, that in Reservoir Dogs it's about a bag heist, but you never see the bag heist. You see scenes of what happens before the bag heist, and you see scenes of what happens after it, but you never actually see the bag heist itself. So of these 4 stories, 2 will be based on what happens before a particular adventure, and then 2 will be based on what happens after. They will all, when you put them all together, will make up one hopefully cohesive story, which you'll never actually get to see the main action. And I probably never show you that one, just to keep the tease alive. So a few things coming up. It should be a lot of fun. Bet you regret asking that question.
Not at all.
Duncan, I think it's your turn. Yeah.
It's up to you,
what am I doing? I am. I'm in Presents Noir. I'm working on number 3. Third part of Bin Kitty Blood Hail, tie into the main Bin Kitty series, which is coming out next month or the month after, I think.
Duncan, I got a question, because do you still wrestle, or you're?
No, I stopped that a long time ago.
Oh, okay. I was going to say that now that COVID's over, I thought I was saying if we're going to see you wrestle or anything.
I stopped paddling over 10 years ago.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
That's right.
Zach's disappeared.
Yeah, Zach's disappeared. So we'll go
Zach
down
doesn't
to
want
Alex.
to talk.
we'll give Zach a chance to come back. So down to you, Alex. Your turn.
Okay, cool. Well, there you go, Reservoir Dave. And Bin Kitty.
Bin Kitty.
There's a collaboration.
Bin Kitty, I love it.
I love that. That needs to happen. But yeah, no. I saw comic wise. I submitted my story to Vamoose 3, so that
Nice.
so yeah, 3 pages, and then 3 pages for Vamoose 3. So Vamoose 4 will have 4 pages, and then it'll just grow, and then
That's a
also,
binding contract, Alex. That's a binding contract.
Issue 100 is going to be. So there's that, and then also working on my Presents comic, and then that's coming along. Then on I do other stuff that's not comics. I just wrapping up a video clip that's going to be. So I don't know if any country music fans. I'm guessing that's pretty much the all comics demographic. So all of you guys subscribe to the Foxtel, who have Foxtel on country music television, or any of the Americans watching from Nashville or Dallas. Also, we've got country CMT. My video clip, I'm going to submit it next week, so hopefully it'll be on TV soon. So I'll spend about 6 weeks doing that. And then also for anybody watching like American stand-up comedy, so I just for the What's Up Fool podcast, which is Felipe Esparza, you can see him. He's got a bunch of Netflix specials, and also on he's also on a new Netflix TV show. Forgot what the name is. So, anyways, just watch his podcast, because the intro animation, I did the intro animation, and he has a new updated logo. I did the logo, and I do all his animated clips, and there's a new one. I'm gonna get a script soon for the next animation for that. So that's the Australian one there. But it's funny because like he introduces as well. Like when he started the podcast, he was like, they're all very Mexican themed podcasts, but every time he talks to cartoons, he always says like from down under, Australia, and stuff. They try to figure out where I'm from because nobody knows, but they do know Australia's involved. So
where do you go to see that, mate?
Go to Netflix. Type in. That's his special. No, YouTube. Go to What's Up Fool. Just Google. Yeah, just go type What's Up Fool. Yeah, What's Up Fool or What's Up Fool cartoons, and then all that stuff will pop up.
What's that? What did you say? You're saying Hungarian, mate. I don't know what you're saying. Say it.
What's up, fool?
What's up,
fool?
Oh, what's up, fool?
Yeah. I don't know how to say it in American. What's up, fool? I can't do the Mexican American accent. But yeah, it is funny as well. Like I listen to a podcast every week. Don't have to. They don't know making me, but I listen to it. It's funny, and every now and then, So it's there you go. Exactly. But it's and so that's what I'm busy with mostly. So those animations, they take up a lot of time, and then and I'm doing comics as well for Shane and Rob, and then hopefully will get me back to do actually more bigger stuff. And then my TikTok as well. I still do TikToks.
Oh yes, had to throw in the TikTok.
Yeah, I'm 110,000 fans strong now. So
nice.
Excellent.
So I'm hoping, and I hope I get my little blue tick soon. I already had a couple of contacts from TikTok, so I might get a blue tick soon as well next to it. So I could be a genuine celebrity on TikTok now.
Whoa. Look at my notebook, Dave.
Ooh, an influencer.
You recognise that, mate? You would have one of them, wouldn't you?
Oh, it's numb stuff.
Is that your TikTok account, Dave?
Oh yeah.
That's. Anyways, enough about me. I can't speak English anyway, so go to Dave.
Over to you, Dave. What are you up to?
I'm just finishing off Time Fault, the story Roger Stitson's written, and I'm just putting the text on it now, and that's about it. It's taken up all my time at the moment. I think I might have mentioned it last week. And also, if you want my stuff, it's in the ComX shop, and also on Indie. All right, that's it from me, Ben.
I just bought Code of War this week.
Hey?
Yes, you did.
I didn't even realize there was there's the Amazing Tales 1 to 4.
I think it's called.
Code of Honor. And and then I was like, was like, wait, Amazing Tales Code of Honor? Is that a different thing? Purchase?
Did you get it? Have you got it yet?
Not yet. I only ordered it a couple of days ago.
All right. Well, Matt Kime read it, and he said he wrote a little thing to me saying how much he loved it. And also Brendan at
D's.
Brendan D said the same thing. And who's the other one that? I told you the president of the comics, the comic museum in the cartoon museum in Melbourne.
Ian McCall.
Cool.
Not Ian. Jim Bridges. So it was the best story he's ever read. Best comic story he's ever read.
Oh, wow.
Ever read. Nice.
No, that's what he said, but I think he might have been a little bit drunk at the time. So maybe it's one of the best he read. I'll take it as that.
Yeah.
Take it.
Anyway, enough from me. Talk to Ben.
Now, Dave, go on a little bit more. I rambled on more. You gotta... but I want to hear from Ben too.
Well, thanks to someone I won't mention, you can find all my stuff now at also reverypublication.com.au as well, which is fantastic. I think it's up now.
Nice.
I think, yep. So all my work's there, which is great to have a place like that. We talking about what we're working on as well. I think my Ricks will be coming out soon with Reverie, hopefully soon. With the Kickstarter, with I think Peter, you've got a book with that as well, with the Rick McClune.
Yeah, I've got a Mr. cover on that one.
Right. Mr. I2 will be coming out soon as well. Oh, no, actually after 3, that'll be coming out as a book. So that won't be for a while. And, of course, Southern Squadron, March, I think, crossover, maybe. Working on it. But lots of things going on. But reverypublications.com.au, if you go there, you'll see a lot of my work.
That's awesome.
Great.
Yes, a lot of it.
Pete?
Over to you, Peter.
Like with Ben, everything I've done so far, you'll find out down there at Reverie as well.
Yep.
All that's published right now will be Torn, issue 1 and 2. About to finish off, literally working on the last page of issue 3 now.
All right, cool.
And they'll be off to Joe and Close to finish inking. So issue 3 hopefully won't be too far off, and I'm about to kick off on issues 4 and 5 of Torn. Then there will be Rick McClune one shot with Hayden, and possibly something with Dave after that. So, exciting times.
I'm embarrassed to say I should have mentioned that as well, Pete. Yeah, Pete and I want to work on something together, which is pretty exciting. So
that's awesome.
It'll be fun.
Beauty, mate.
Last page of Torn, if you're quick. That's it.
Oh, wow.
People can pause this in the recording, but okay.
That was the point. The tease. No, I never said that because it's not finished.
Smacking that bloke in the surf, isn't it? Yeah.
Oh, this one. That surf is amazing, Peter.
Well done, Pete. That looks really good.
It's like me spilling one of my creaming sodas. Waters.
Yeah, it would have been more funny if you didn't put the can out. So that way we're creaming sodas. I don't know. Anyway, so I tried to make a dirty joke. Shouldn't have. It's a G-rated show. Moving on. This didn't work. This is not the place to test material. Sorry, my apologies.
Zach.
Over you, Zach.
I just had my cover on Embryos.
Whoa! Right, hang on. Let me boost you up there.
Ooh. Look at that. Look at that spunky dude.
That's a nice cover, Zach.
And then I finished my cover for Devil's Toilet Story.
Oh boy.
That's great.
Look at
Nice.
it.
Wow. Angel.
And then I've got a lot of Bronwyn coming out in the next few weeks. So.
Excellent. Looking forward to that.
And of course,
I
he
can't
also
wait to
has
see
a
that
Kickstarter at the
Bronwyn
moment.
Oh,
At
and Vivian.
presents.comx.studio. With Vivian. Awesome.
Here's a picture of the bottom row, boys.
Ah,
No jokes.
good.
Nice.
Just pictures.
That's the other thing I've got popping out there as well is I've got a variant cover with Zach on Bronwyn, which I was really happy that he asked me to do. So
You
it was
missed
great fun.
Alex. Nick, you didn't put Alex in that picky.
It's okay. Don't worry. My heart's not broken.
I covered Alex.
Well, I think that's everyone. Sorry, you're saying, Rob?
I was going to say much what you were going to say.
Oh,
Time
okay,
to go
cool.
home.
Time to go home. I just got to get on the right screen here. Thank you, everyone, for coming on and drawing your awesome pictures, as always. Thank you, Dave, for coming on and telling us all about writing and stuff. That was pretty cool, the process and so forth. And I am looking at the wrong thing. Oh, there it is. Sorry about that, bit of technical issues there. And thank you to all the artists. Thank you to everyone who watched. It was a great night as always. Thank you, Mark. Awesome show again. Yes. And thank you, everyone else. And have a great night. And see you all next Friday.
Well, we drank, we drew, we talked nonsense. Now it's time to say goodbye. Don't cry, dry your eye, for there are many cool comics you can buy. ComX.shop is full of comics from a bunch of the creators you just watched. Amazing Tales by Dave de. The Devil's Toilet by Spedsy. ComX Presents featuring Ed Kearsley, Tony Manzi, Duncan Pranavicius, Peter Wilson, Lee Chalker, Zach George, and so much more. The list is longer than this outro. See you next Friday for more drinking and drawing. Alright Sizzle, press the button. Sizzle? Sizzle, press the damn button. Sizzle you turkey, press the goddamn button.